It all started on a gray October morning, the kind that feels like it's apologizing for being alive. I was driving my father, Raymond, to yet another dialysis session. The streetlights still flickered, even though the sun had already crawled into the sky. My hand tightened around the steering wheel as I glanced over at him. His eyes were closed, head leaning back, lips slightly parted. He looked so small. This man who once towered over life, who used to walk into a room and silence it with a single glare, now seemed to shrink a little more with each hospital trip. I'm 38. My name's Eric. And for the past 11 months, I've been living in a world of silent resentment and quiet dread. Did I tell you about the summer of '72? My father croaked, cracking an eye open as we turned past a row of wilted oak trees. You told me yesterday, but I don't mind hearing it again. He chuckled, weak but warm. That laugh, it made these early mornings worth it. My wife, Nadia, didn't think so. She hadn't from the beginning. I still remember the look on her face when I told her I was rearranging my entire schedule to take Dad to dialysis twice a week. It wasn't concern. It wasn't confusion. It was disgust, thinly veiled behind a tight-lipped smile and eyes that didn't blink enough. That's 2 nights a week, Eric, she said, arms folded across her chest, standing in our doorway like a warden. 2 nights you're just gone? He needs me, Nad. The nurse helps, sure, but he doesn't have anyone else. You don't think your own kids need you too? They do. But this is their grandfather. No, Eric. This is your burden. Not mine. And not theirs. I wanted to scream. To yell that she didn't understand. But what would be the point? We'd had this conversation before. And I'd always lose. Nadia was never close to my family. Even when my mother was alive, she'd find reasons to avoid Sunday dinners, claiming my mom was too controlling or passive-aggressively judgmental. But the truth? My mom saw through her. After my mom passed 5 years ago, things with Dad got rough. He gave up his company, an industrial supply business worth millions, to a management trust. He'd once wanted me to take over, but I pursued software development instead. We had a falling out. He threatened to cut me from the will. I told him I didn't care. And I meant it. I had a stable job, a modest but beautiful home, and a family. I didn't need his money. Or so I thought. Fast forward to now, and I've spent the last year watching him fade. No longer the man who scolded me for slouching or barked instructions like a drill sergeant. No longer the tycoon. Just a father. A scared, lonely, terminally ill father. I rearranged everything to make space for him. Saturdays and Wednesdays became sacred. My boss, George, who's known me for over a decade, even adjusted my hours. But every accommodation I made for Dad caused a fresh explosion at home. One Wednesday, I came home at 9:45 p.m. Late, yes, but I'd stayed behind at the dialysis center because Dad had a mild dizzy spell. When I walked through the door, I found Nadia standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, our 2 kids watching cartoons on the couch. You were supposed to pick up Ava's project supplies, she hissed. You could have texted me. I was at the clinic. Dad again. Always your father. Maybe he should live here instead of me. Our daughter turned her head at that. Her eyes, wide and confused, hit me harder than any insult. That night, I sat in the garage for 45 minutes before coming inside, just listening to the rain ping the roof of my car. My heart weighed 1,000 pounds, and I couldn't figure out how everything had gone so wrong. It wasn't just the arguments anymore. Nadia was sabotaging my time with Dad. Every Saturday, she'd come up with some urgent task, deep cleaning the house, last-minute grocery hauls, impromptu dinner parties. And when I'd remind her I had to take Dad to his appointment, the eye rolls, the sighs, the venom. You know, she said once, pouring wine while our friends sat in the next room. Some people prioritize their own families. As if Dad wasn't mine. But here's the thing, I was there for my family. I never missed a birthday. I coached both our kids' soccer teams. I stayed up till 2 a.m. finishing work after long hospital visits, just so we wouldn't fall behind on bills. Yet, it was never enough. What crushed me most was watching Nadia chip away at the only piece I had left, those quiet, 30-minute drives to the clinic. That tiny bubble of time when Dad and I would reminisce. Laugh about old cartoons. Debate whether Elvis or the Stones had more influence. Now, I'd grip the wheel, tension in my shoulders, constantly checking the clock. Afraid to be late, dreading the hellstorm waiting at home. Why don't you let the nurse take him? Nadia asked one night, sitting on the edge of the bed in one of her silk robes, scrolling through her phone. Because I want to. Because it's the only thing he and I have left. She scoffed. He left you nothing, Eric. You said it yourself. He gave the company away. The will's dry. I'm not doing it for money. Well, maybe you should. I stared at her for a long moment, 1,000 words on the tip of my tongue. But all I said was, good night. I couldn't even look at her anymore. The woman I'd built a life with was now someone I didn't recognize. That week, Dad noticed my silence during the drive. I wasn't sure if it was intuition or just the sheer weight of age, but he looked over and said something that gutted me. I'm sorry, son. For what? For being such a bastard about the business. I didn't want to lose you. I pulled the car over, put it in park, and stared ahead, fists clenched on the wheel. I didn't need the business, Dad. I just needed my father. He nodded. You got him now. And for a while, I thought that was enough. Until the will changed everything. The call came on a Thursday morning, just as I was logging into a virtual meeting. It was Dr. Singh, my father's nephrologist. Mr. Grayson, I think it's time we discuss next steps. My stomach sank. Next steps. He hesitated, then sighed. Your father's kidneys are failing faster than we expected. He may only have weeks. A couple of months if we're lucky. I sat there in silence, watching the loading screen on my laptop spin. My coworkers were already joking in the meeting chat. I barely heard them. Thank you, doctor, I whispered. After I hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just stared out the window, watched a bird land on the fence, and for the first time in years, I felt truly alone. Not just tired or overworked. Not just worn thin from marital skirmishes. Alone. Later that night, I told Nadia. We were lying in bed, backs to each other like usual. Dad's dying. She didn't move. He's been dying. No, it's close now. A few weeks, maybe. That was all she said. I waited. For a hand on my arm. A breath. I'm sorry, or even a fake hug. Something. But all I got was the faint glow of her phone screen behind me. I don't know what broke first, my heart or my hope. The next few weeks passed like a blur of beige hospital walls and shallow breath monitors. I spent more and more time at Dad's place. I'd pick up his prescriptions, stay with him for hours after dialysis, bring him his favorite coffee, even though he could barely stomach it anymore. Nadia's resentment grew by the day. You missed dinner again. I was helping Dad bathe. Well, we're all out of laundry detergent. Maybe you could care about this household for once. I gritted my teeth. I'll grab some after I drop off his meds. Why don't you just move in with him already? I didn't reply, but I did start keeping a bag in the trunk, just in case. By the end of February, Dad could barely speak above a whisper. The last time I saw him awake, he asked to sit outside. I helped him into a chair on the porch, wrapped him in a blanket, and sat beside him as the sky turned orange. I was hard on you, Eric. Too hard. You were a father. I was a tyrant, he chuckled weakly. But I never stopped loving you. Even when I was too proud to say it. I know. Good. Because you were right, you know. You didn't need the company. You made your own legacy. That takes guts. He reached for my hand. I made sure of something before I go. What's that? You'll see. Those were the last words he said to me. 2 nights later, he slipped into a coma. He died 3 days after that. The funeral was quiet. Just me, the kids, and 2 of his old business partners. Nadia wore black, but spent most of the service texting. Afterward, we drove home in silence. I watched the world pass by through the window, felt the weight in my chest shift. I thought that was the end of the story, but it was only the beginning. 2 weeks later, I was called to the lawyer's office. Mr. Halvorson, Dad's longtime estate attorney, greeted me with a solemn handshake. I'm sorry for your loss, Eric. Your father was a complicated man, but he thought the world of you at the end. He slid a thick envelope across the desk. This is going to come as a surprise. I opened the envelope and pulled out a will dated 3 months prior. It detailed everything. Dad's assets, his business shares, his real estate, his accounts, all of it, every single cent. To me, I blinked at the page. I thought he gave everything to charity. That was the old will, Mr. Halvorson explained. He rewrote everything before the holidays. He said, and I quote, Eric never needed my money, but he's the only one who earned it. My heart pounded. What does that mean? You're now the sole beneficiary of his estate. Estimated value, $12.8 million. $12.8 million. I sat there, stunned. The man who spent years resenting me for not joining the family business had left me everything. I walked out of that office lightheaded, stumbled down the marble stairs, clutching the folder like it might vanish. The next call I made wasn't to Nadia. It was to myself, voicemail. I just needed to hear my voice. Something real. Something tethering me to earth. But I should have known the news wouldn't stay quiet for long. It took less than 48 hours for Nadia to shift into a whole new version of herself. Suddenly, she was making breakfast, smiling in the mornings, wearing the perfume I hadn't smelled in years. Want pancakes, babe? I stared at her like she'd grown antlers. She even organized a surprise movie night with the kids. Popcorn, blankets, the works. She laughed at all the jokes, touched my arm when she didn't need to. And every time I looked at her, I saw through the act. The way her eyes flicked to my phone. The way she casually brought up home renovations. The "oh honey, what do you think of beachfront property?" comments over wine. She knew. The will wasn't public yet, but the whisper network was strong in our town. Someone leaked it. And my wife, the woman who told me I was wasting my time with my dying father, was now the most affectionate partner I'd ever seen. I wanted to vomit. The final straw came on a Tuesday morning. I was folding laundry when I found a little note tucked in my jacket pocket. It was written in her handwriting. "I'm so proud of you. You're the man I always knew you could be. Let's build our dream life together." I laughed. Out loud. This woman. This manipulative, venom-dripping woman. Now that I was worth something again, now she wanted to love me. I folded the jacket and placed it back in the drawer. Calm. Focused. That was the moment I made my decision. It was time to let Nadia know. This story didn't end with a will. It was just beginning. I didn't say anything right away. Not when she started making me lunch every day. Not when she suddenly asked if I wanted to get away for the weekend. Just us. Not when she changed her phone background to a wedding photo from 10 years ago that hadn't seen the light of day since 2016. I watched it all in silence. I needed to be sure. But the moment I knew, truly knew, was the night she showed up in lingerie, the same one she'd worn on our honeymoon. I came home from a meeting with Dad's old accountant. The paperwork was thick, the numbers surreal. I still hadn't told Nadia that the money was real, that it was all mine. But the air around her was changing, like she could smell it. She met me at the door with a glass of bourbon in one hand and a look I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. "Thought I'd surprise you," she said, breathy and coy. "Why?" She blinked. "Because I love you, Eric." "Since when?" That froze her. I walked past her, set my keys down on the counter and leaned against the island, watching her carefully. "You hated me last month. Remember? I was a burden. An emotional wreck with a dead-end job and a dying father. You told me I was choosing him over you. That was different." "No. It was honest. Whatever this is fake. I just want to know how long you plan to wear the mask." She lowered the glass slowly. Her eyes hardened, but her voice stayed soft. "You're upset. You're grieving. You're lashing out." I scoffed. "That's cute." I walked into the living room, took a seat on the edge of the couch. She followed me, wrapped in satin and fake warmth. "I was scared, Eric. You were pulling away, and I didn't know how to reach you." I tilted my head. "When my dad was dying?" Silence. "You told me it wasn't worth it. That I was wasting time on someone who had nothing left to give. Remember that. People say things they don't mean when they're hurt." "You meant it," I said calmly. "You meant every word." She swallowed, throat tight. Her eyes darted, calculating. "Eric, can we stop this? Please? Let's move forward. Let's just start over. We have this beautiful family, and now we have an opportunity." There it is. She froze. The opportunity. That's what this is about. Not grief. Not love. Not healing. You see dollar signs, and suddenly I'm worth something again. Her jaw clenched. I watched her cycle through the expressions: shock, guilt, sorrow, deflection. She landed on indignation. "Are you accusing me of being a gold digger?" "I'm not accusing you," I said. "I'm confirming it." Her face dropped. I stood up, calm as stone, walked over to my desk drawer and pulled out the document. The updated will. The trust transfer. The inheritance certification, all legal, notarized, binding. I handed it to her. She didn't even hide her hunger. She devoured it with her eyes, her breath quickening as she flipped pages. 12 million, plus the properties. She looked up, and for one brief, unfiltered moment, I saw it, the real Nadia. The one who never cried when I cried. The one who rolled her eyes when Dad fell in the shower. The one who called his hospice care a waste of gas. This woman had sat beside me at a funeral just 2 weeks ago, and all she saw now was access. I can't believe you changed it, she murmured. I can, I said. The next words came slow and deliberate. I'm filing for divorce. The silence that followed was deafening. She blinked once, twice, laughed, short and sharp. You're joking. No. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The paperwork is being drawn up. You can't be serious. I am. You made this choice, Nadia. Every Saturday you guilt-tripped me. Every Wednesday you ditched the kids to party. Every time you mocked my dying father, you chose this. Her eyes narrowed into slits. So that's it. I make one mistake. This wasn't a mistake. This was a campaign. Eric, we have children. I know. That's why I'm not kicking you out yet. But you and I? We're done. She stepped forward, tears finally coming, but they weren't real. I knew her tells. No shaking hands. No red eyes. Just surface moisture and desperation. I don't want to do this with lawyers. Let's work it out between us. You mean so you can manipulate the terms? No. Her mask was crumbling. You really think you're going to walk away with everything? She hissed. You think a judge is going to just let you keep all this and take the kids too? No, I said quietly. But I've documented everything. Every insult. Every fight. Every time you abandoned your parental duties. And I've got 10 years at a respected tech firm, a steady income, and now enough assets to provide stability. She stared at me, stunned. This isn't revenge, Nadia. This is clarity. Then I walked out. I drove to my father's house, now mine, technically. I sat on the same porch he and I had shared during his final lucid hours. I poured a glass of scotch and listened to the wind whisper through the trees. I wasn't angry anymore. Just free. Later that night, I got a text from her. You'll regret this. You're throwing away your family. And I replied, You did that. I'm just cleaning up the mess. The next morning, I got an email from my lawyer titled Preliminary Draft. Inside was a copy of the divorce petition and a detailed asset split proposal. Clean. Fair. I wasn't interested in a bloodbath. I just wanted peace. But Nadia wasn't about peace. She was about image. By noon, the whispers had begun. A text from an old college friend. Hey man, heard you, and Nadia split. You okay? A call from my cousin in Denver. Why's everyone on Facebook saying you abandoned your family? And finally, a voicemail from my mother-in-law, who'd never liked me to begin with. You better get your act together, Eric. My daughter is devastated. The least you could do is show her some respect after everything she gave up for you. I hadn't told a soul. She had. By that evening, I checked her profile. She'd changed her relationship status to separated, posted a filtered selfie with the caption. Sometimes, love isn't enough. Especially when you're the only one trying. Hashtag stay strong, hashtag mom warrior. I stared at the screen in disbelief. She was spinning the narrative, painting herself as the abandoned victim and me as the emotionally distant husband who left his family the moment he got rich. Classic. But I didn't bite. Instead, I logged out, grabbed my jacket, and drove to my lawyer's office. We expedited the papers. She's going to fight you on custody, he warned. She'll make this nasty if it gets public. I'm ready. And I thought I was. Until the first grenade landed. I picked up the kids from school that Friday. It was my day per our informal agreement while the papers were being processed. They climbed into the car, backpacks clattering, faces flushed from gym class. But something felt off. Ava, our youngest, looked nervous. Fidgety. My son, Brandon, wouldn't meet my eyes. What's up, buddy? I asked him at a stoplight. Nothing. Ava whispered, Mom said you're leaving us. My grip tightened on the wheel. I'm not leaving you. Never. You hear me? But she said you wanted a new family now that you're rich, Brandon muttered, still not looking at me. I pulled over, parked, turned around and looked at them both, heart hammering. Listen to me, I said, voice low and steady. Whatever your mom told you, I need you to know something. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever stop me from being your dad. I don't care how much money I have or don't have. You're my kids. My entire world. Ava nodded, her lip trembling. Brandon finally met my eyes. Okay. That was when I knew the real war had begun. The next week, Nadia sent a counter-petition through her lawyer. She demanded full custody, citing my emotional instability and erratic behavior following his father's death. She also wanted spousal support, half my monthly income, and access to shared assets, including the properties I had just inherited. properties that were never communal, assets she knew damn well weren't marital. I stared at the document in silence. She's trying to bury you, my lawyer said. She wants to starve you out, make you desperate, force a settlement that benefits her. But she didn't understand one thing. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the truth. So I began preparing. Quietly, deliberately. I compiled every text, every voice recording where she berated me, belittled my dying father, called me useless. Every time she left the kids alone to party. Every email she sent mocking my grief. Every voice memo my daughter had accidentally captured on her iPad. Nadia screaming about how I was a spineless loser who cared more about his dead dad than his living family. All of it. I burned them to a drive, locked it in a safe. If she wanted war, I'd meet her on the battlefield, but I'd do it with facts. The mask began to slip in public, too. We attended Ava's school play 2 weeks later. It was our first appearance as an unofficially separated couple. She wore a red dress, lipstick perfectly applied, like she was headed to a red carpet. I wore black. Simple. Tired. She smiled at everyone, neighbors, teachers, old friends, and made sure to loudly mention that Eric's going through something to anyone within earshot. She always had the talent, she told the drama teacher, gesturing toward Ava. But I've been the one helping her rehearse every night while Eric, you know, deals with his grief. The teacher gave me a sympathetic look. I smiled, nodded, said nothing. I was learning the value of silence. Because while she weaponized perception, I was building a wall of truth, one brick at a time. That night, she cornered me in the parking lot. You're not playing the game right, she said through clenched teeth. What game? You know damn well. The poor widowed son, the devoted father. Everyone feels sorry for you. It's pathetic. No, I said calmly. What's pathetic is pretending to mourn a man you couldn't wait to get rid of. She stepped closer, venom in her voice. You think you're going to win. You think you'll walk away with the kids and the cash and your pride intact. But let me be clear, if I can't have the life I deserve, I will burn every piece of it to the ground. I stared at her. This wasn't the woman I married. Maybe she never had been. Then I smiled. I don't need to win, Nadia. I just need to survive. That's something you've never learned how to do without someone else paying the bill. Her face twisted, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. She knew I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was building my exit, brick by brick, word by word, day by day, and when the truth came out, it wouldn't be just her mask that shattered. It would be the world she built on top of it. Court day. The building loomed like a colossus of gray stone and glass, its halls sterile and quiet except for the clack of heels and rustle of legal documents. I stood outside Family Court Department C with my lawyer, suit pressed, jaw clenched. Across the hallway sat Nadia, in a cream blouse and black slacks, hair perfectly curled, makeup immaculate. To the average bystander, she looked like the image of a heartbroken mother fighting for her children. But I knew better. So did she. As our names were called, and we entered the courtroom, I could almost hear the ticking in her head. Calculations. Lies. Plans A through Z. She believed she could still control the narrative. Paint me as unstable, bitter, and overwhelmed by money and grief. She didn't realize I hadn't shown my cards yet. The proceedings began with routine questions. Financial disclosures. Property ownership. Joint accounts. The judge, a woman in her early 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense tone, moved swiftly through the preliminaries. Then came custody. Nadia's lawyer rose. Your Honor, my client requests full custody on the grounds of emotional instability and neglect. Mr. Grayson has demonstrated a pattern of absenteeism, choosing to prioritize his dying father over his own children. I saw red for a moment, but I didn't move, didn't blink. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Grayson, do you wish to respond? I stood, buttoned my coat, and handed the court clerk a labeled USB drive. Yes, Your Honor. This contains audio recordings, text messages, and time-stamped emails documenting behavior that I believe is relevant to both custody and character assessment. The courtroom stiffened. Permission to submit? My lawyer asked. The judge nodded. And then it began. The playback wasn't dramatic, not like in movies. There were no gasps from the gallery. But the judge's face changed with every file. With every insult Nadia had thrown at me. Every moment of parental abandonment. Every time she mocked my grief, or told our children I didn't love them. There was even a recording from our daughter Ava, taken unknowingly, where Nadia was venting to her friend on speakerphone in the kitchen. Honestly, Eric is a pathetic mess. I don't even want him. But I'm not about to let him walk away with all that money and the kids. He doesn't deserve them. I do. When the last file ended, there was silence. Just the low hum of courtroom lights. Nadia looked pale. Your Honor, my lawyer said quietly, we're not asking for revenge. We're asking for fairness. Joint custody. A reasonable division of assets. My client is not vindictive. He simply wants peace. The judge rubbed her temple. This is deeply troubling. She turned to Nadia, who now looked like she was unraveling inside her tailored blouse. Do you have a response? Nadia's mouth opened, then closed. Her lawyer scrambled to say something about context and emotional stress. But it was too late. In the end, the ruling was clean and clear. Joint custody, with Eric named primary residential parent. No spousal support. No claim to inherited assets, which were proven to be solely his. Mandatory counseling for Nadia before revisiting any future custody modifications. As the gavel fell, I exhaled for the first time in months. It was done. I didn't look at her as I walked out. She called after me in the hallway, something half-broken and desperate, but I didn't stop. Instead, I picked up Ava and Brandon from school, just like I promised. We went to the park, ate ice cream, laughed about the pigeons that kept stealing our fries. For the first time in a long time, I felt something real. Freedom. Weeks later, I stood on my father's porch, the same porch where we'd shared our last conversation. The wind was cooler now. Fall had come early. In my hand was the final letter from his lawyer. The estate transfer was complete. The properties, accounts, and holdings were mine. But I didn't feel rich. I felt responsible for something bigger than revenge, bigger than court wins or viral moments. I used part of the inheritance to set up 2 trusts, one for each child, locked until they turned 25. I started a scholarship fund in my dad's name for kids pursuing engineering or tech who'd lost a parent, and I sold one of the condos he left me to buy back time. Because that's the thing no one tells you. Wealth can't buy time. It can't give you back the days you lost to arguments, to silent dinners, to watching someone you love disappear piece by piece. But it can buy peace. And that's what I gave myself. What I gave my kids. And that's something Nadia can never take. She still tries to call. She still posts cryptic quotes online. But I don't answer. I don't react. Because the truth won. Because I'm raising my kids in a home where love isn't measured in inheritance or apologies that came too late. It's measured in time spent, hands held, and quiet rides to school. And as for my father, I like to think he'd be proud. Not because of the fortune, but because when it mattered, I showed up. Even when no one else did.